Hello, creative people. Welcome to Creative Conversations. My name is Hala Citron, and we are so happy that you have chosen to spend your time with us. I am owner and founder of I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing, and I am on a mission to expand the definition of creativity beyond a pencil and a paintbrush and to empower people, especially adults, to own their voices and talents that come in so many different forms. This space was created to talk to people with all different kinds of jobs, hobbies, and interests, and to have conversations about experiences and perspectives, all centered around 3 questions. How do you define creativity? How do you incorporate it into your life? And why do you think it's important? Then we have a free-flowing conversation and we see where it goes. So I have had the opportunity to speak to so many. I've spoken to musicians, comedians, doctor, lawyer, wrestlers, Reiki masters, and entrepreneurs as young as 13. And these conversations explore the reality that creativity is not cute, it is necessary. People have defined creativity as that magic spark, how we show up in our life, imagination, basically all that we are and want to be, do, or have. So I believe from my heart that sharing these stories gives one the ability to expand their thinking, open themselves up for more self-expression, to feel more empowered, connected, and dare I say, happy. So my inspiring guest for today is Jen Jonassaint. She is a certified financial and life and transformational coach who has helped hundreds of clients go from financially frazzled to financially free and continues to transform their lives. On this exciting journey, clients grow, learn, have fun, and win in their life and money. She knows how difficult and scary it is to delve into your money story, and we all have one. So, Jen, welcome to the space.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I am so glad that you're here. Okay, so before we fully dive in, is there any kind of a fun fact or something that you would like to share before we dive in and get to know you even more?
Well, I am from the islands, and so I used to like hot and spicy and mangoes. Those two things go together for me.
So you said you used to, so you still do, right?
I dabble in it every now and then just to
Okay.
get some spice going in my life. Yeah.
Ah, so it's not a regular anymore.
Not anymore. No,
Okay. Do you miss it?
I do. I
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah. Get some spice in your life.
There you go.
The simple little ways to add some spice. So we're gonna do our would you rather, and then we are going to dive into the official questions. So, Miss Jen, are you ready?
Yay, I am.
Okay. Would you rather have Breyer's vanilla ice cream or a fancy flavor of any kind?
I would prefer a fancy flavor of any kind. I love options and choices. So,
Hmm, I had a feeling. See, some people like vanilla, which I totally understand because you can add things to it. It's like a
right.
good base, or you can appreciate the pureness of it and, there. And other people are just like, "Oh my god, that's just too regular. I can't do that.
Right. That's right.
I have to have some mix going on in there."
That's right.
So you like the mix.
I love the mix.
Yes, totally understand. Okay, so we are going to dive in. And first, initial question is, Jen, how do you define creativity?
Wow. You know, I define creativity as a multifaceted, uniquely designed way of having fun just for you.
Hmm. Multifaceted way of having fun just for you.
Yeah, it's designed just for you. So uniquely designed based upon the person.
So tell me a little bit more. Dive in a little bit more with that, please.
So my creative is not somebody else's creative, right? So for me, creative, I like things that bring me joy and
Hmm.
and sparkles of joy throughout my day. And so for me, creative is cooking. You know, I could have 6 pots on a stove at the same time. To me, that's creative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, creativity just means I get to design the things that I want in my life that brings me joy. And it could
Mm-hmm.
mean everything from how the way I make up a bed, which is super creative. I got that from my son. I'm not even going to repeat what I do, but
Well,
so to
now I
me,
need to hear it, Jen. You can't just like put that out there and be like, I'm
I
not going
know.
to tell you.
I
You have to
know.
give us a hint.
This is well. I have to. This is a disclaimer. I've borrowed this creativity from my son, who is actually the most creative young man I know. But
Okay.
well, you know, raising children is interesting because you tend to sort of repeat what your parents or some of the things your parents did, and I started doing that and I realized, you know what, this kid is way out of the box for me. Like I really have to let him be his own person. And
Mm-hmm.
I when I told him to make the bed, he just threw he put the covers in a way where he could slid right underneath it at night. And I was like, you know what? I like that. That is so creative,
I want
right?
to know what that looks like.
I know. It's like a mound fort.
Okay. I love it.
So I borrowed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's funny. You just made me think of our cat. One of our cats gets all of a sudden you see like a little bump in the middle of the bed underneath all of the covers.
Right.
And I'm like, and but nothing has moved. Like,
That's
how did
right.
she get under? Like,
How did she get
and
in there?
isn't she suffocating? Like, what is there's so many questions in all of this. and and my kids have said we're like, we've seen her do it. She gets her head and she pushes back the sheets, and then she pushes off the frame of the bed and she
I know.
wiggles her way in, and
She's so
it's a
creative.
big
She's so creative.
process.
I love it.
And then there's the human part of me that's like, I need to pull back the sheets so she can breathe. But obviously, she's okay. She's done this
She's
many
fine.
times.
She's alive.
She's,
She's alive.
which kind of goes to the idea of what you said already about like what we kids,
Mm,
and how we kind of automatically go to what we were taught. And then it's being open to realize we don't have to. We don't have to overcomplicate things and change them. We have
right.
to listen.
Yeah, we don't have to mold them. We just
Mm-mm.
have to let them be
Mhm.
who they're meant to be. My son says he's uniquely designed.
Mhm.
I said, "There you go." No, he says, "Mom, I'm built differently." I said, "Absolutely. 100%."
Yeah. How old is he?
He's 15.
Mhm. But the self-awareness, like, that's amazing. That's, as
Mhm.
adults, what we want to keep in our lives is this awareness of self instead
Yes.
of getting lost.
Yes, indeed. And I think that I see in because I work some with teens, I've seen teens sort of really push the norm. You know, their inner troublemaker comes out and they are so not like their parents. And this is a generation, the Gen Z, Gen Y generation is so unlike their parents. And I'm like, yay, way to go, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, so okay, so let's dive in some more and tell us about you. Tell us how what I called this is going from financially frazzled to financially free, but before you have become a financial and life and transformational coach and all of this that you do, tell us a little bit about more wherever you want to start in your journey about who you are and how you got here.
Well, at the end of the day, I've rematrixed myself 10 times over. And I say that because if you saw me when I was talking to a friend the other day and I said, if you saw me when I was, younger, before 17, you'd have said, this kid needs a real therapist because I
Mm,
was painfully shy, clinically just a wallflower, uh, just in the worst way. I mean, just invisible to
mm,
the world around me. And they said the brain doesn't come online until you're like 26, 27. It happened for me. It's like I involved into this person and I'm like, huh, who is she? And as time went on, I realized that there was a lot of things that was really really packed down deep, suppressed, repressed. And then I did the work. I did the work with many, many, many coaches and therapists and spiritual leaders around, getting to know who I was and who I am and what I brought to the world. I knew I had something. It was just buried very deep. And so I had to do those excavation of learning who I am, self-awareness, emotional intelligence, all of those parts that I bring now to my clients, learning neuroscience, learning, all the parts that I really love and I enjoy and the creativity of all of those things to myself first, like me first, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that evolvement, that evolving is happening every day. And when I see that transformation, I am surprised, I am shocked, but then I always knew there was something underneath. And so for me, the whole idea of me transforming first, uh, before I can help someone else, was was the magic, right? Was the wow. Wow, there was
Mhm.
so much creativity because creativity in a sort of traditional sense, I always thought, well, I can't paint and I can't draw, I do
Mhm.
stick figures. I have no sort of creativity in that realm. And I did a dual workshop with an artist friend of mine. And
Mhm.
she really helped me to bust through all of those norms and bring out the inner troublemaker in me and be a disruptor in so many ways. Because again, I was a wallflower. And so I had to really work hard to step outside, not just one box, but many boxes in order to embrace all of who I was, the best of me, so that I can give the best of me to others, right? And
Yeah.
that was such a process. It was such a long process. And it got me so excited so that when I realized I wanted to bring this to the world, I realized I didn't want to bring it in a traditional way, like boring. Like
Mhm.
boring is not part of my mantra ever, right? And my
Mhm.
husband says you have way too much fun with clients. And I'm like, yeah, because I feel like if I missed out on fun, so fun is
Mhm.
really a part of my if my very breath. And I was talking to my coach the other day, and sometimes it gets me into trouble because I want to have fun when I really have to work. And she says
Mhm.
to me, well, how can you do both? And I was like, oh, I like that. And so
Yeah.
we were able to play with, how do I then bring both into my life every day to get things done, to move the needle, while I still bring joy into every aspect of my life. And so for me, the creativity comes with, you design the life your way, the way that you desire to be. Some I have some clients that are writers, some that are PhD, some that are you know accountants, and fun is so different, creativity is so different for every single one of them. And I design it their way on their terms.
Mhm. Here, I have to give a cheer. Hold on. Here we go.
Ah.
We have to we feel the need to have to do that.
Yeah.
I wanna go back and ask, so I completely understand the being a wallflower, being incredibly shy. In
Mm,
fact, one of my multi-author books is called Invisible No More: Stepping into the Spotlight.
wow.
Um, and what was it for you that, how old were you? And maybe I missed it, and I apologize if I did. When you were just like, "No more," like, I don't wanna be invisible anymore."
I think it was around 23. I was coming to an age where I was stepping out of my teens into my 20s, and I decided to take a big, huge, fat leap and leave my family of origin and step out of the norm and come to somewhere that I've never been before.
Mm,
I didn't understand what the culture was different, and I just did that. Just I say it blindly. I think my heart was thirsting for that risk, that new, that different. And I now that I know I'm an Enneagram 7, I just love adventure and I love exploring and I love things that are different. I didn't know that about myself then, of course, but that's when everything started to make sense to me and I explored and I got lost and I made mistakes and I did all of those things in my early 20s and I was I was brave enough to take that step of faith. I don't know when it happened, but I think it started around 2021, 22-ish. And then 23, I just made the big leap and migrated. And that was it.
That's beautiful. Can you tell, let's just kind of backtrack. When you said, I think Ideogram 7, is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Enneagram
Can,
7, yeah.
yeah, can you please tell people exactly what that is? Because I've heard of it,
Oh,
but people might not
yeah.
know.
So the Enneagram is it's a personality sort of assessment, but it's much more. It's our core motivations, our core fears, and the core of who we are. What motivates us? What make us tick? How are we packaged? How are we designed? And there's it's much more scientific than what I'm saying, but in terms of getting to know who you are, what drives you, what moves you, what brings you joy, how are you wired, and this is where the embracing of who you are is like it's all wrapped up in this sort of tool, this
Hmm.
tool. So as I worked with an Enneagram coach and I understood, who I am, I'm a nerd when it comes to assessments. And she figured out I was a 7, and sevens are all things fun. I was like,
Hmm.
yay. We don't like boring. We love options. We just adore choices, right? And
Hmm.
fun is our middle name. Like we are the life of the party. Bring it on every day. But sometimes it can get us into trouble. So there's the unhealthy 7, there's a healthy 7, and there's something in between in the middle. So it's very much
Mm.
scientific, which I can't really explain it that much, but I know that is that coming to that understanding of who I am at my very
Yeah,
core validated and confirmed what I was called on this earth to do, the purposes I had, the places I should be, stepping out and doing things that were so different than my family of origin. I was like, yes, yes,
yeah.
I knew it. I just didn't have a word for it.
Yes, 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 yes. I think this is just such an important point just to kind of stay on for a minute because how you were when you were a kid is so different. When you described a 7, it sounds like everything that you weren't when you were younger.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so one might ask, well, how could you be a 7 if you weren't showing that when you
That's
were
right.
younger?
Yeah, and it's funny. It's the same thing I asked the Enneagram coach. That's the same question I asked her. I said, "What
Yeah,
happened?" She
right.
said, "You were always that, but it was suppressed.
Mhm.
You were always that. There was always part of who you were. That was your core." I was like,
Mm.
wow, what happened? Well, the brain
Yeah,
came online, and that's what happened. We
yeah,
just don't evolve at 15. That
yeah,
takes a while for the brain to come to a place of full evolvement. And really, the growth goal is to rematrix yourself over time. That
yeah,
transformation is not one time. It
yeah,
is constantly evolving and coming stepping into new levels, new horizons, new risks, new adventures, new exploration. I've changed so many times over,
yeah.
which is a beautiful thing.
It's a very beautiful thing, and I want to acknowledge, who's with us here live. Mandy, so good to see you here. Any questions or comments, please feel free to put it in the chat box. You can be part of the conversation if you'd like. Um, I just can't stress this enough that I mean, there's so many different scenarios. There are some people that come in, some kids that come in, and as you said, they're kind of troublemakers in a good way,
Yes.
where they're disruptors. They're willing to challenge and know who they are and know what they want to do. And they kind of stick with that. But change. There are changes along the way, and some, like you said, are there's just so many variations on the way that we expand and the way that we grow. But I just think it's such an important conversation to have because people can get frustrated. And in their adulthood, what I see, and I think what you may see too, is people getting stuck in the whole adulting thing and
Mm.
then get frustrated because they're not having as much fun in their lives. It's like your husband has said, you have way too much fun with your clients. Like, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I know. He's an engineer, so I could understand I could understand the left brain syndrome. But I actually feel that and I'm going to switch a little bit here. I actually feel that traditional school actually forces people to change it in a way
Mhm,
that's not them. And so for
mhm.
me, I just feel like, the, I think it was, I forget who said that there was, when you're mainstream or when school love kids that are very mainstream, they sit down, they listen, they obey, they do all the things that are good. And when you find a
Yes.
disruptive person, it's like that's a troublemaker. And can I just say that the troublemakers are the ones who change the world?
Yes.
That's, I'm just saying.
It's true. It's true. Those labels get thrown on.
Yes.
And when that label gets thrown on, there are some kids. There was one particular scenario, which I won't go into deep, but it's just that my son was having an issue with this one particular administrative kind of person at school. And he was able to kind of stand up for himself. And at
Good.
one point, I was like, "Look, we didn't raise you to be rude," but at the same time, he was wrong. Like the person that said this to you was wrong.
That's right.
So when I called and spoke to his supervisor, I was like, "Look, my kid is secure enough with himself where
Mm,
what he said is not gonna it's not gonna affect him in a bad way. But there are other kids I know for a fact that it would." Like when he said to my son, "You're never going to amount to anything."
mm.
It's and my son came back with a retort back to him that was very sarcastic and rude, but at the same time, no, he
He stood
wasn't
up for
accepting
himself.
that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So everybody's built differently. Some people will take that and carry that with them until they're 50, thinking
Right.
that, and other people will take the time to work it out and be
Yes.
like, and some kids are just already comfortable with themselves to be like, "No, that's a bunch of bullshit."
That's right. That's right. And yeah, so I just feel that, we have to really empower young people to come into who they are at their core earlier than when I don't know about you, but when I came in, I was later.
Yeah.
We have to empower them now. And I just feel like, I sort of had to pivot a little bit. I used to work with teens in that space. And now I feel, you know what, I really want to go back to that in a way because, it's so much harder when, adults come to me. They're so ingrained in some
Mm,
system. It's really hard for me to shift the needle or for them to do it because there's so much packed in there. But when I
yeah.
have a teen, I mean, they're just throwing out all kinds of stuff that is so like fun. Like, how do they, they're not thinking concrete in a way because they're not adults. So I play with them and have fun with them because their brains are just so not linear. It's just all over the map and sort of you have to rein it in, but it's so fun that they just don't have those barriers and those blocks and those boundaries.
Yeah.
They're boundless in their ideas and it's just different working with teens. So, and I have a teen, so it's every day, all day long, I'm going
Yeah.
through this situation. So I have fun with him. I borrow his fun sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, which is amazing. Okay, so let's kind of I really do want to get into what I call this the money story, the money aspect
Yeah.
before we learn more about you. Talk to us more about that, the money story, the financially frazzled to the financially free.
Yeah, so we all have money stories. I have one, it's on my website, and I did not know it was my money story until I had a money coach.
Mhm.
And realizing that money is neutral. It's not good or bad, right or wrong. In the hands of wrong people, it could go sour, right?
Mhm.
However, money, we need money, and we saw our parents handle money. And by the way, more is caught than taught. So you can imagine, you see your parents growing up, and money conversations happen all the time. As a young child, if a parent don't sit down and have a conversation with you about what's happening in the household, you tend to make up stories, and they tend
Mm.
to be not true, right? Kids create narratives. That's why they're not good witnesses. right? So
Mm-hmm.
we create stories, and those stories are parts of us that come with us in adulthood life. So you can imagine, the stories of maybe poverty, or maybe mismanaging money, or secret, so many different stories that people bring to me when they come to me. And those money stories don't stay in the, as we know, everything sort of comes into our adulthood life. And those money stories, if we're not self-aware, will come with us and and we will begin to embrace that as part of who we are. Those
Mm-hmm.
money stories, oftentimes we get into trouble with those stories because we embrace them like ours, like it's a coat, you know? And so if mom was, I don't know, haphazardly with money, or she didn't save, you may have borrowed some of that. I call it a sort of a legacy burden, I call it. When I work with clients, we talk about some of those legacy burdens. And by the way, you don't have to carry those legacy burdens. You can take them off. But because we are conditioned, I would say, or prone to, subjected to create uh, those sort of parts of our brain, unconsciously carry those quote memories or stories or narratives, what I call them, and
Yeah.
it runs in the back of our minds, and we act it out or play it out in our adulthood life. Right? So, for example, for me, I'm just going to share about me. When I
Mm-hmm.
felt sad, mad, or glad, I went shopping
Mm-hmm.
because it provided comfort to me. Now, I became a shopaholic as a result of that, of course, because I mean, you're talking about sad, mad, and glad every day. That's every
Right,
day,
right. It pretty
right?
much covers a lot. Yeah.
Correct, correct. And all, so that money story was with me. Is that okay? If I feel sad, I'm shopping. Some people, everybody has their soft addiction, right? Mine, it was shopping. Huge, just
Yeah.
huge. And I didn't even know it was a soft addiction until I went to my coach and I started to share, and we went all the way back. I mean, talking all the way back. And what a powerful experience of unpacking some of those stories that, by the way, I created. I created because there was no conversations. You talk about creative conversations.
Yes.
In the absence of conversations in families, kids assume, kids make up, kids create.
Okay. So I
And
want to stop you right there for a minute and then continue. I'm sorry, but so are you saying that if, let's say, a kid is like 8 years old and there is financial stuff going on and all of that, but the parents aren't sitting down and saying, da, 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 having the conversation, should they be having a conversation, but at an 8-year-old level?
yes, 100%.
Hmm. Okay.
100%. Or else the kid will make it up. And by the way, that will be a part of their story, not consciously, right? Unconsciously running in the background. It's almost like if you have, and I've been known to have this, 20 windows open on your computer.
Yes.
I'm big, I'm there, right? It's so it's you're not seeing it, it's minimized, but it's
Yes.
running in the background. That is what
Yes.
happens with the money story.
Okay.
That's what happens with the money story. That's just an analogy of what happens with the brain.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry I interrupted what before, but I just felt like that needed to be
No, that's
clarified.
okay. In the absence of conversations, people create stories.
Hmm.
And uh, and 99.9% of the time they're not accurate.
Yes. Yes. Was there something else that you wanted to go off on when I introduced you, when I interrupted? Do you
No, I
remember?
talked about, your podcast name is sort of really apt. It's conversations.
Yeah.
We need to have conversations.
Yeah,
I
we
say to
do.
people, create money circles in your family. Safely, of course, but have money circles. Why do I have to wait until somebody dies to understand what's going on in the household? Why does it take death? Why does it take, you know, uh, Sue doing something so that I can understand that I have something coming to me? Why is that? Why do we There's two things that people shy away from talking about: money and sex. I'm not even going to go
Hmm.
there because money is my superpower. So I'm just going to focus on that. It's
Hmm.
so hard for people to talk about money. It's almost like taboo.
Yeah.
And unless we have those, what I call honest conversations, you don't have to share details.
Yeah.
This is not talking about how much you earn. This is we're not getting granular here, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about being comfortable with having a conversation about currency.
Yeah.
We all need it, we all use it.
Because it really is, like you said, and it really is understanding that money is neutral. It's
Very.
not money that's doing harm to anything. It's
Nope.
how it's used and its intentions with it.
That's right.
It's
That's right.
all that's where things, it's interesting. We just did a family tree and just went over it today with the person. They basically focused on my mom's side and just kind of went back to the mid 1800s. And I just
Wow.
bring this up because I was kind of seeing how this entrepreneurship and all of this stuff kind of ran back in the family.
Yes.
Salespeople, it
That's
went
right.
back pretty far. People owning their own businesses, people
Yeah.
working for people having one part of the family actually did some bad things with money and they moved, meaning in the sense that they were writing bad checks and
Mm.
I think I'm kind of putting it out there saying it, but I don't know. There was kind of like they moved to California, Florida when most of the family was up east in Philadelphia. But there were I don't know if there was like they were being ostracized in a sense. My mom never even heard their names before.
Mm.
So it's just interesting. That's just top of mind right now when you kind of hear these things, how it
Yeah,
gets
and it's
used and how it can separate.
and it's interesting you're talking about that with your family, and I've heard a lot of money secrets, especially with married couples.
Mm,
A lot of money secrets, money infidelity. There's so much money trauma, right? There's
hmm
so many money subjects that gets wrapped into client sessions, and it comes out, and it's almost like a therapy session because, again, money is one of those things that people don't discuss, even when they're dating, especially when they're married. There's so much in there. But my point is, if you don't deal with your money story, it's going to come with you, and that's a legacy burden. But what I do is I transform it into doing legacy impact, right? You want to begin to change your legacy, and you can do that. And it is a
hmm
beautiful thing to see.
Yeah. You gotta do the work, everybody.
Got to
Like
do the work.
you have to be willing to learn more about you and your patterns and be like,
Yes.
okay. And like we kind of said earlier, we screw up. You know,
Yes.
just give yourself a break and just be like, okay, that happened. Moving forward, blah blah blah.
That's right. That's right. And that money infidelity, I've seen it. Money trauma, I've seen it. Money abuse, money. I mean, I just it is quite a gnarly thing to work through. But when you do the work and you come out on the other side, it is beautiful to watch. The liberation that
Mhm.
comes, the evolving that comes. It takes work. It takes
Yeah.
work.
Okay, so let's learn. We'll I'm sure we'll touch on stuff like this along the way, but let's learn more about Jen. So,
Yeah.
how do you incorporate more? You mentioned cooking, but how do you incorporate more creativity into your own life?
Well, I get to create fun things. I start with me as a guinea pig around money. I've had many money coaches, mindset coaches, etc. But for me, I build in fun in my planner. Like the one part of my brain, I'm a project manager, so I have this sort of functional part of me, and then the other part of me, I like to have fun. And I think so. I'm a if you, and I do on something called Money Habitude. It's a game around money, and my habitude is that I'm a planner. And people say, "Well, how come you're 7? How could you be a planner? Like those two things don't go together." Well, I plan to have fun. That's a
Hmm
plan to spend, we plan to give, we plan to have fun. We just plan to do things, right?
Yeah.
Um, because two things can work at the same time. Like I'm not all fun and I'm not all planning. I like
hmm
both. And so for me, I'm a fun planner.
hmm
I love to plan fun. Like I love to, and sometimes I'm spontaneous. Like Saturday, I was doing a I was doing a 3-day coaching challenge, and tedious and long, and some things were really hard. And I said, you know what? I just want to go and have fun in the middle of it. And
Yeah.
I just called a friend and we went to do some arts and crafts and we did some joy stuff, and that was all I needed, and I went back. And so that was spontaneous because I didn't plan it, right?
Yeah.
But I came back to what I was originally set finished to do. I want to finish the task. But I needed to have fun in between, or else I get bored, I get antsy, I get restless. And I'm like, no, I need to do something different. I need to move my body because I have high sensory needs. So I know myself enough to know what I need.
So tell us some more. So I'm hearing myself in the background. Okay, that stopped. Okay. Um, so tell us some more. So you just said you went and you met up with a friend, did arts and crafts. What other things for you are like examples of joy things that you would plan or spontaneously do?
So this is something unique to me, but I go and I look at kids playing in the playground. I go on a swing during lunchtime and I swing with kids. I go to story time in the library. I'm the only
Mm,
adult there besides the one who's telling the story. Those are the
mhm,
things that I do because I go to my happy place, which is a garden close to my workplace. And there's a vine and there's a vineyard and there's grass, and I roll on the grass and I do different things. I, I just feel like it fills a need that I have that
yeah.
probably needed to be filled. So I integrate those things into my day.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love that. Just I think before when we were talking, we talked about the swing thing because
Yes.
right when I asked this, I had in my head, it was kind of like scrolling through saying swing, swing, swing. I kept hearing it in my head. Um, but everybody, it's these things that you might be like, well, that's childish. Well,
I
come
know.
on, get over yourself. Like, that's exactly the point. We crave this stuff. It makes
Yes.
us feel good, it makes us laugh, it brings us happiness,
Joy.
joy
Yeah.
for whatever reason. Um, and these are the things that we need to engage in as adults.
That's right.
Give yourself permission to roll in the grass. Give yourself
Yes.
permission to swing on the swing. Give yourself permission to go to the bookstore, the local bookstore, and
Story hour.
go go to story hour. I mean,
I know.
yes.
When the first time I did that, this was years ago, a little girl said to me, "But you're not little." And I said, "Yes, honey, there's a little girl inside of me."
Oh my god.
It was
What
so
is
funny.
that's so sweet. What did she say?
She just looked at me smiling.
That just reminded me of the movie Elf. I don't know if you've
Yes,
seen that.
I've seen it. Yep.
Yes, the part where he's at the doctor's office and he's, like, holding the cotton ball on his finger,
Yep.
and
Yep.
he's saying, "My finger has a heartbeat."
Yes. Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. But we all have that little person inside of us, and if we don't nurture him or her,
Mhm.
I feel like we don't we don't heal. I feel like if we don't heal, the parts of us that are carrying the burdens, right? The yearnings are there. We just
Yes.
suppress them by being adults.
Y yes. Yeah, go back to that terminology, the adulting.
The
I
adulting.
hear "Oh, well, Hollis, I have rent to pay, I
That's
have
right.
mortgage to pay. Do you really think I'm gonna go out and go swing on the swings? Because I gotta go make money. I gotta go do whatever, whatever, whatever." Every excuse under the sun when, like you're
But you
saying,
but you
we're
can do
yearning for
both.
these things, and you can do both.
You can do it's who this it's not this or that, it's this and that. You can do both. You can do whatever you want.
Yes, you can. You have the
Yeah.
power. We give you permission, everybody.
You have to give yourself permission. And I think a lot of times we have to unshackle ourselves from sort of the linear way that we were taught sometimes, and just throw it off like a coat and begin to adopt and embrace something that's new and different. You're an adult, so you can do that. But I think,
Yeah.
I love when you say give yourself permission, because I don't think we give ourselves permission to be silly, to be fun, to be playful. I mean, I just have so much fun with kids. I just love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think people are way too serious, way, way, way too serious. And people need to loosen up a little bit.
Yes. We do take life pretty seriously.
And I don't know when that starts. I have no idea.
Mm. Can start in many. I mean, unfortunately, I've seen some kids have so much responsibility at such a young age
I know.
that it can almost be put on them that early,
Yes.
for many reasons. Whether it's, maybe the parent doesn't speak English and the kids do,
Right.
and they have
I've seen
to
that.
speak up for the parents, or there's many kids in the house, and
Mm.
the kid in fourth grade is taking care of the baby because mom has to
Right.
work, and like
Yep.
there are so many. Those are kind of extremes,
And
but
that's sad, I find.
it's real.
It is.
Uh, but anyway, okay. Tell me, you work with people, coaching them in many different ways. You have like the lifestyle design, project program, home
Yeah.
strategy, financial transformation. I mean, there's really so many ways
There's a lot.
that you
There's
help
a lot
people
there.
design their life.
Yeah, because people come in for so many different things. So many different goals that they have. Some people may just come for credit, or some people might just come for home ownership, and some people may want to structure their pre-retirement. Some people may want to just start saving for something, college, mortgage. So many different facets of financing. And then I'm also a consumer advocate where I go on the other side where I work with things like scam prevention and predatory lending and foreclosure prevention and those other sort of just high justice part. But have a high justice, so I have many parts, but that high justice part is the consumer advocate part. And then there's a sort of legacy building part. So which is why I love options, right? Because I'm not just
Yeah.
one thing, I'm many things. And because I have experience, lived experience, professional experience, and also, education experience in finance, I try to make it as versatile as possible and get people to design the life they want their way.
Mhm. What do you find the common thread is between all of these different things that you offer? Because I'm sure that when somebody comes in and is talking about building their credit, there's maybe the person just does come in for that, but they unpack many other
Yeah.
things along the way.
Well, I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and the pattern that I see is debt. Debt always gets in the way. All kinds of debt. Debt is really the common denominator that I see, that shows up because it's a barrier, it's a block,
Yeah.
and it gets in the way. It's like the big elephant, right? That's in the living room, and you can't get around it. You can't get over it. You can't get over it, but it comes back to get you. You can't get under it. You have to get through it. And people don't have a strategy or a plan to get because they feel overwhelmed. Like this big thing is looming over me. How do I even begin to, how to eat an elephant, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of time I do a lot of strategy around that piece of it, which is the biggest impediment that people come to me for.
Hmm.
Huge.
Hmm. Yeah. It's a big one.
It's a big one.
Yeah, and with all of these aspects of, you just have such a great balance between the life coaching and all of the things with the financials, that you can really look at a person as a whole and
Yeah.
speak to them as a human and not make them feel bad about themselves.
Oh, listen, I don't have to do that. They come feeling bad,
Yeah.
which is so sad for me because it's like that's not your identity.
Yeah.
That's not who you are. And so I first have to deal with, a lot of somatic work. And thankfully I'm doing a lot of somatic work with other therapists because I had to integrate that because that was actually getting in the way of the session. So I had to
Mm,
go back. I mean, I went for mindset. So beyond mindset, I had to go to somatic work, emotions, big and huge, around money. Money is very emotional,
yeah.
very emotional. I have tissues in my office because people do a lot of crying, and I don't make them do that. It's just money is tied to so much emotion. And so, and a lot of it lives in our body. This somatic work that I do lives in our body. So I do a lot of prepping and mindfulness around that before we even get started, because it is very a powerful shift when people actually get through some parts of their intentions, I say, part of what they intended to come for. It's huge. And
Yeah.
I realize that, I'm holding people's hearts in my hand, sort of, in a way, because they're trusting me with this information. They're opening up, they're being raw and vulnerable, things that they will never even tell their spouses or their family. They wouldn't share this information. I feel like a trusted advisor in a way. And I don't advise per se, but I feel like if I'm being entrusted with this information. So for me, it's very valuable, the sessions. It is worth its weight in my time and in all the experiences that I have, the continuing ed that I do. It is for client transformation,
Mm.
100%.
Before we get to the last question, maybe could you tell people also what somatic work is?
So somatic work is simply body work, embodying sort of all of those feelings. Because when we experience something, we first feel it, and then we
Mm.
feel it typically in our bodies, or anywhere.
Yeah.
And we sort of identify that part. We identify that part of it, and there's a 5-step turn that I take. It's a model that I follow, taking a U-turn. So we do the 5-step around somatic work. Where do you feel? Where is that coming up for you? When I feel what, then I do what. And so we have to do a lot of reverse engineering where that part is. And
Yeah.
that's a part, by the way. Like that part I felt, that person probably felt when they were 2 or 3 or 4. That's not going away. So
Yeah.
if we get to begin, and I like to do root work, because I mean, and I take time to do it, because if I don't, what I did, because I've been doing this for probably 25 years, and what I found that when I was doing it with just the math, there was a high rate of recidivism. People were
Hmm.
not being transformed. They were just doing the math, and I'm like, what happened? When I went back and I did some work I went back to school, I did some work on neuroscience, and I realized, oh my gosh, this is so somatic, right?
Yeah.
Which one of us sat down and was shared about our emotions when we were younger? Like I didn't get that.
Yeah.
And so all of those feelings are carried in the body, and then they begin to take root. And I had to go back to school to begin to do some of that work. And now I see transformation lasting, because we're getting to the root.
Yes. Again, here we go. Everybody, it's getting to the root of things. Our body, it's kind of this thinking where it's not uh, it's not like neuroscience in this sense where it's like if you eat crap, you feel like crap. Like
Right.
it's really that basic.
It
But at the
is.
same time, we often don't stop to think about it
No.
because the eating of that makes us feel good. So we just continue to do it. But we hold these things in our body.
Mm-hmm.
We hold all of our feelings in our body.
Yes.
And that translates in many other ways that often can don't feel good. They don't feel good physically, they don't feel good emotionally. So I just think that it's so wonderful that in how you're helping people, you are really literally getting to the root of it.
Getting to the root. Yep.
Yeah. Whew. So actually, I lied because before we get to the last question, I want to ask you, do you have a morning routine of any kind?
I do. I actually do have a morning routine, and it's not, I do nothing perfectly. I do nothing every day. I
Mhm.
do rituals, and I give myself, like, I plan my week, the Sunday, and I say I want to do some ritual 4 out of 7 days. So I never do, as a wellness coach, I was a fitness coach, so I have all these different modalities that I bring into my everyday world, but I never do it. I used to have clients coming in, and they've never worked out, and they said, I'm just going to do 7 days a week. I'm like, well, you may want to just scale it back to one to start. Oh, no, 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 I'm going to doing 7. And then I see them one day and they never come back. So I always
Yeah.
say, try to do what you can, feasibly,
Mhm.
based upon what you have going on. So my rituals is really doing a lot of deep breathing in the morning, a lot of stretching. When I say a lot, I mean 10 minutes the max, right?
Mhm.
And so I get into a place of centered. I check in with my parts. Somatic work is number one, right? Because that lays the foundation for the day.
Yeah.
check in with my parts. I check in with my parts throughout the day, but the morning time is really where I start. I know what's coming up. I have a ritual of, I pray. Um, I do some sort of work or, Japanese swinging. I do a lot of sympathetic nervous system work, hanging down my head, doing different things. It's like a ritual that I do. And then
Mhm.
I brush my tongue. I drink warm water with lemon. This is a ritual that I have every day. So that is my beginning of the day. I don't eat until probably 11. So I do, I sort of have that water, that warm water in the morning, and getting my system a lot of deep breathing, especially when I have like a big presentation or something to do that I'm really nervous about. My nervous system really has a lot more work to do on those days. So I have to know what my week is in order to begin to plan my day, in order to plan the things that I have to do. On easier days, I don't do a lot of that somatic work, but I do somatic work every single day for sure.
Mhm. I really love that word rituals that you're saying, putting it in those ways. There seems to me it's kind of like, I don't know, there's a romanticism about it.
Yeah,
I have
yeah. It
instead of like it's not a harsh word.
No, it's not a harsh word. In fact, my husband is also a financial coach. So we coach together, we coach marriage couples, and we have a ritual of having a money date. Um,
Mm,
and we advise people to have a money date because it breaks that sort of, this is a war between us, you spent this one. No, have a money date. Light a candle. Like we did it last night. We have it the first week of every month. And we did it last night. We had a nice candle going. We had music in the background. We were able to talk through some of the things that what we want, and we dream. I really get couples to have fun and to be romantic around money.
mm.
If that makes any sense at all.
I love that. I love
Right?
that.
And so even singles, when we do our groups and stuff, we tell people, you're single. It doesn't mean that you don't have go on a money date with you.
Mhm.
We try to integrate fun, romance in the money situations, transforming your money titles. That's something else that we do. And I work with a lot of women with trauma. I do some pro bono work for a national firm, and these are women who have had, domestic violence and stuff. So we transform their money titles, right?
Mm,
Because of what they went through. You cannot have that same title
right,
around it because it triggers, right? I'm
right.
also a trauma informed financial facilitator. So I work a lot with trauma. And so I tell people, get on a money date, whether it's once a week, you do it, whatever favorite ice cream you want or popcorn, make it fun because the brain loves rewards. So that when you hit an intention, it could be a tiny one. Give yourself a reward. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to spend anything, but just make yourself feel special and bring that sparkle of joy to it. It's like
Yeah.
you're training your brain to reward yourself because that's where the magic happens.
Ah, yes. It is so different when you describe it that way instead of being like, okay, let's sit down, whether you're an individual or a couple, and we're sitting down and we're going over PSE&G, Comcast, blah blah blah, and this is
It's
the due
boring.
dates, and and it feels bad. It's boring, and
It's shaming. It's
it
shaming.
it is. Whereas you're
Yeah.
talking about like romance, and this feels
Yeah.
good, and this is yummy, and
That's right.
let's have some mint chocolate chip ice cream while we're make some sundaes while we're talking about all of this. So yeah, that's
Right. So
beautiful.
so then the brain ties into reward with money. Like that's a pleasurable thing. It's not right. It's not a fight. We're not into conflict. Wow, this really feels nice. So you want to go back to that thing that feels nice, but it's a healthy thing, right? You're not going out and spending tons of money on shopping or whatever, which I've been guilty of before, but now it's more of a treasure, it's a treat. And so we really integrate that in our classes, in our one-on-one with couples. We get them to play and have fun and change their money story, so that they can leave legacy for a lifetime.
Whew. Okay, so as we're getting to the top of the hour, the third and final question basically puts a nice little bow on everything, which is, why do you think creativity is important?
Well, I think it's important because what other option we have? Boring. So that's not cool. But I think creativity, we are creators. We create things. We create children. We create, businesses. We create everything that is now was
Yes.
created.
Yep.
So that means that's our DNA. That's who we are.
Hmm.
That's who we are. Right? If we're not creating, staying stuck, put. And that's, when you have water, when you have water not moving, it stinks. So I
Hmm.
think creativity is our DNA. It's who we are as individuals, as human beings. We must create, or else we shrivel up and die.
No big deal. This is what cracks me up when it's like, I guess it's one of my biggest pet peeves. Oh, creativity. Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Um,
Just in in the way that you described it, and in the way I've had so many the you just verbalized it, and the words you used are very poetic, and people basically what you're saying is that it's life.
it is. It
Creativity
is.
is life. It's our DNA. It's who
It's
we
our
are.
DNA.
I mean, you can't get any more like important than that.
Right. And people say they're not creative, but you can make a beautiful meal, and that's creative. I mean,
Mm,
I think the culture is, if I can't paint or draw, it's creative. Well, that's really limited. And
yes.
I had to burst out of that too. I mean, years ago, an artist friend, just had me do a journal that had just so much stuff in there. It was so fun. It was so freeing, and it just freed my mental blocks of what creativity and art was. It's like I had so much fun doing that. Um, so I think people don't see themselves that way because there's a lot of limiting beliefs. So there you go. So I just take the shackles off of the beliefs and just play and have fun. You'll see how much better your life is.
Oh my gosh. So Jen, how can people connect with you?
So I'm a Jen Inspiring Coach both on Instagram and Facebook. I have a quote monthly blog. I call it vlog-ish that comes out once a month. When I feel creative, I do it. And
Uh-huh.
I'm on Spaces. I work mainly with nonprofits, faith-based organizations, and small businesses with their workforce development participants. My goal is really, as I pivoted my business, is to really empower low-income women, closing the wealth gender gap. That's really my focus now as I've pivoted, because I feel called, feel purposed to do that, to work with those individuals.
Mhm.
And I'm in spaces nationally, helping national companies and trauma-based informed companies, but really I work with B2B, very few private clients, since I want to begin to, now that I'm in the second half of my life, I really feel and know that I'm called to this work, a mission-minded work. And so that's where I am focusing on right now. And again, working with a very few private clients, and probably creating a course or two, a webinar, things like that on the side. But really, my goal is B2B at this point.
Yeah. Well, before we say our goodbyes, is there anything else that's top of mind or you feel like, "Ooh, I forgot to say that?"
Um, not not really. I think in looking at creativity, I think, if for me, just personally, if
Mhm.
I don't see creativity all around me, I tend to get stale. And so for me, I put up all kinds of creative photos all around my space where I'm working, creating vision boards and making visual. And
Yeah.
I think at the same thing I do with, with people with money, what do you want? Make it visual. Because for
Mhm.
me, out of sight, out of mind. I am just that way. I feel like you have to begin to put it in front of you. And that is the magic to me in
Yeah.
realizing that dream, in making something come from to fruition, is seeing
Yes.
it. And so for me, I'm sitting at my desk right now. I'm looking at these beautiful photos with awesome quotes. I love quotes. That inspires me, that motivates me. Because I mean, people say to me, "Oh, you're so motivating." Yeah, but some days I'm not. And so I need something to help me. And
Yeah.
so I have visuals all over my home. And my husband says, "Honey, we have no more wall space to put anything."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I have it because I need it. And so
Yes.
one of the things I wanted to say is, don't just speak it, say it, think it, show it.
Mm. That is a beautiful way to wrap it up because, yes, you need to surround yourself with the people um, and in the places and the visuals that lift you up, that
That's
show
right.
you and remind you who and what you want to be.
We
So
need reminders.
we do. Everybody needs reminders. All humans need reminders because we get off track at times, and we're human. We have emotions. We
Yes.
fall into little pits and we make little pit stops that aren't always so helpful at times, but it's having those visual reminders of, oh
Mhm.
yeah, that's the goal, or
That's
ooh,
right.
that makes me feel good, or oh, that
Yeah.
quote, or I love the wall being that color.
Yes.
Because it lifts me up, it energizes me. it's
Yes.
all it's all encompassing, so thank you for
Yes.
that.
Thank you. Create a joy journal or a joy jar and I just bring it with you wherever you go.
Gosh, Jen, thank you so much for taking this hour to chat. You are so great to talk to, very inspiring.
Thank you so much, Hollis. I love your podcast and I love that profile photo. I just have it everywhere. I just love it. It inspires me.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody. We know you could be doing anything with your hour, and we so appreciate you hanging out here with us. So, this space is all about inspiring each other, connecting, sharing stories. So, please like, follow, share, write a review, all of that good stuff so it can reach more people because I believe we've always needed this, but I think we need it now more than ever. We just need to lift each other up. So, wherever you are listening in the world, I wish you a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good evening, and look forward to connecting again soon. So, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Feeling inspired? Let's just get rid of this, throw away this whole perfectionism thing, this whole concept that we have to know how to do everything. You know what? You don't. Let's just do things and try things and realize what we like and what we don't like. It's all part of the process. This self-awareness feels so good. You feel more connection to yourself, connection to others, and be a happier, more joyful person. Just imagine that. So you are where you are in the process. So you can dip your toe in the water to try new things at a slower pace, or you can dive right in. Here at I Am Creative and Express Yourself Publishing, we meet you where you are. So there are so many ways to check us out. Explore our experiential kits. They have everything in them that you need to try new things. You don't have to buy anything else but this kit and just explore. There's Creative Shui, which is 7 elements to joy and happiness. Through the publishing house, Express Yourself Publishing, multi-author books, coffee books, solo book opportunities. It is all about expression, all about it. And it's, again, just trying these things and realizing what you're good at. Don't all of a sudden think that you only fit into one box, because we don't. We are not made for boxes. There is also my TV show, I Am Creative. Check it out. The links are all in the body of this podcast. You can just click the link. And you know what? Don't say, oh, maybe I'll check it out tomorrow. Life's too short. Just click it. See what it's about. There is honestly no judgment. It's all about exploring the possibilities, expressing yourself, and expanding your thinking. I will give you the website, which is iamcreativephilly.com. So I am Creative Philly, PHILLY.com. And just remember that you are an expressive being, so own it. I am looking forward to hearing your story because we all have one.